MPG Ranch in Florence, Montana. We're here on a little chilly, blustery day to talk about mountain lions and the mountain lion study that's going on and the project that a lot of you are working on, which is the Mountain Lion Challenge. We have high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools. Hi, Mr. Zorbas. And elementary schools on, and at the same time for a purpose. All of you are studying this landscape behind me, and you are the high schoolers are charged with looking at a management plan for the management of mountain lions on the ranch. The middle schoolers are looking at communication projects, and the elementary school students are looking at habitat and characteristics in order to write a mystery. So all of the information that you're getting from each other and also from our speaker today are extremely important. We ask that you have a piece of paper and a pencil handy to do some observations, to write down some facts that you might see or hear as we go through this. And so we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'll introduce our speaker, Joshua Lisbon, who is the Education Outreach Coordinator for MPG Ranch. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to MPG. Thanks for joining us today. If you can look out here behind me, we've got a little bit of a gray day here in the Bitterroot Valley, but I figured I'll start off by just telling you a little bit about MPG generally and about the project generally for those of you who may not be familiar with us and what we do. MPG we're a research organization. So the ranch itself is about 16,500 acres. And we are privately owned, but we're managed for conservation, and we're set up a lot like a biological research station where we're trying to study impacted landscapes. So this land has seen agriculture, cattle grazing, and timber development. And so we're trying to take those lands and get them to as healthy as possible, as biodiverse as possible, and as native species rich as possible. And we're doing the research to get from A to B. So we're studying everything from below ground soil systems and the mycorrhizal fungi up through the trees and the shrubs and the pollinators and the bears and the eagles and the mountain lions. And so one of the projects that I get to be a part of here in the winter is the mountain lion research study. And I've been running that for probably about 6 or 7 years now. And so it's been incredibly informative for me to get out and to study these incredible creatures. And so I'm really excited to have you along today joining us. And so to tell you about the project a little bit, we started sorting it all out in the winter of 2012, 2013, and we worked with Dr. Mike Sawaya here in Missoula. He's with Sinopa Industries, and we based this project on his research and his protocols, which are non-invasive protocols. And so what that means is we are not handling cats. So a lot of research projects are much shorter term than ours, and in order to get a lot of good information, they will tranquilize and collar cats, and they can check their teeth, they can age them, they can collect DNA, they can put a collar on, they can get all of the information about where they go when they're wearing that collar for the duration of the project. So it's a great way to get information. It's a great way to get what you need out of a shorter term project. But we are non-invasive, which means we're not doing any of that. In fact, we're just following them around in the snow, and we backtrack, so we go the opposite of the direction that they're traveling, and we pick up hair, and we pick up scat opportunistically along the way, or we find kill sites where we can place cameras. There's a lot of good DNA there with, they set up latrines, so we can get a lot of good scat samples at kill sites. And then we run that DNA through the lab, and they bring back our information on, how many of the samples we bring in are mountain lion, because not all of it goes to the individual level, but we're most interested in getting back individual results and how everyone is related. So that gives us an idea of our population, how they're related, who has kittens, all that sort of thing. And so gradually over the years, we've gotten enough information to be able to get a pretty good understanding on what our population is and how many individuals live here and how many don't, and how they use the landscape.
Great. And we're going to start by looking at habitat, correct?
Yeah.
Because we're here, where they're living.
So yeah, important things to think about as you're looking at habitat and looking around the ranch. We have a lot of live cameras. We've got a Buckeye network, which are motion activated picture cameras. And so you just get stills out of those, but boy, there's so many of them around. You can get some amazing stuff. Then we have live cameras that you can actually grab and zoom in and out and move them around and look at the habitat out here. And it's a fantastic resource. You can use them the rest of this week, and then they're going offline for the general rifle season out here, and then they will be back in December, so you can use them again. But things to look at are, you want to think about how your predators and your prey are going to interact and how they each use the landscape. So we have riparian area, which is going to be down in your floodplain by the river. We have grasslands. We have sagebrush steppe, which is a lot of sage and a lot of bitterbrush. And then we have forest. We have a lot of drainages and draws, a lot of water in those drainages and draws. And you want to think about how animals are moving, and then the predator and prey dynamic, thinking about open habitat and edge habitat, where the open spaces meet the forested spaces, and then forested habitat as well. And where are the cats going to be and why?
Great. So we're going to take about two to 2.5 minutes, and Allie is going to take you on a tour of the ranch cameras. If you've got your paper and pencil ready, you might want to write down some things that you observe. We're trying to be like the scientists here at MPG, where you do a lot of observation of the land. And then we'll talk more about how mountain lions use the land. So I'm going to mute the microphone here and turn it over to Allie, and then be taking some notes so you can ask some good questions.
Good morning, everybody. So I am at the MPG Ranch, a live map website. And this is a very cool place, like Joshua was saying. I'll show you a couple of features that you'll be able to take a look at. So we are looking at part of oops, we're gonna have to reload the page if I wait too long. Here we go. We are looking at part of the ranch, and one of the fun features, like Joshua was saying, is this little icon right here. I can use that to actually move the camera, so you can control the cameras on the MPG Ranch. Now, what we're doing is, this is a really wonderful spot to get an idea of what the landscape really looks like all the way around. Whoa. There we go. You've got the Bitterroot Mountains across the way. We're looking down at the Bitterroot River, which runs through the property as well. Here's some of that sagebrush steppe that Joshua was talking about. I'm going to click out of this. Now you have a map. This is the ranch. Again, you can see here's the Bitterroot River. Any of the dots that have this black V are areas that we will be able to see live cameras. So I click on Spike Camp Ridge. We are seeing, and I can make it larger, we're seeing a little bit different habitat than what we were looking at before. So this gives you an idea of a little bit different habitat. I would like you to be writing down what types of plants you are observing, what types of trees you see. If you happen to see any animals at all. One of the other things that we have on the ranch are stock tanks, and stock tanks are spots where animals will often go to get water. Let's see, there's lots of ponds as well. So here's the Tongue Creek Pond. Once in a while you'll see an animal down drinking from the pond. There are also presets. So let's see. This one does not have a stock tank. I want to find one that has a stock tank for you. Right over. Oh. Up.
No, up a little bit. 2 inches up, 1 inch up. There.
That one. Okay. Here we go. Oh, the North Drop.
Oh, that's a live cam. Yeah, but it's looking
Yep.
at the stock.
Yeah, so we're looking at this stock tank. You can zoom in on that as well. I'm going to also show you.
There.
Oh, yeah. So Joshua says we've had a lot of cats. Go over just a little bit. I want to show you another feature. And will the Buckeye cameras be off, or will they still be able to take a look at those stills that are reported?
I don't know if you'll be able to look at past history. They just won't update, or if they'll be completely turned off.
So if we go to...
But goodness, definitely look at the North Stock Tank Buckeye.
So if I go to stock tanks,
because it has had a lot of activity.
Great. And look, you can, oh my goodness, you can see all the different types of animals that have visited these stock tanks. So these are pictures that, well, these were taken yesterday and this morning. Let's see if you
There's
can
a Norse
identify any of these animals.
There we go.
I can see that this was taken on the 20th, which was 2 days. Oh my goodness. Someone's in the stock tank. Wow. Oh,
That's our videographer setting up cameras.
it's right before.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah, we moved them off of a kill right there, and the cats came back 20 minutes later, so they're not terribly disturbed by human presence.
Oh man, oh my goodness. There are a lot of cat photos. So yeah, this is a great spot. I'm actually wanting to get some non-cat photos to show you other things that happen to visit the stock tank. But there are so many cat photos that I may have to just hop out of that and go down a little bit further because
Yeah, if you go to like the 16th on that same tank, you'll start seeing elk.
okay, we'll do one more and then
15,
we are
16.
going to, let's see if we can get this guy. So that's a big old buck that we're seeing. Ooh, can you identify what kind of deer that is? Look at its ears. Ears give it away.
Boy, a lot of ear activity on that
A
deer.
lot of ear activity. Oh,
There's a nice buck. Yeah, the way the antlers fork will give them away too.
yes. All right, so you can get a feel for what types of animals we have at the ranch, and I encourage you to go and look through these pictures because it's going to give you a, oh, what's this guy? That's fun. That's a different one than we've seen. But you can get lost down here. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to go ahead and turn this over to Joshua so we can talk a little bit with him, ask some questions.
I think you're just looking out the window.
You are. We had a nice window view, and there's Joshua.
Hey, everybody. Great.
They're mostly muted.
Okay, great. Well, I think we're going to go around and do some questions, but I just want to share a few things with you here. So while we're out there picking up DNA, I just figured I'd show you. This is as close as we can get to having a mountain lion in the studio with us. But you can look at them. They have a really incredible camouflage and pretty short hair on the top, some lighter hair on the belly. And so this is one of the things that we're looking for when we're picking up DNA is the hair. We really want a good chunk of hair and some follicles on there. And then another thing to look at are their paws. You can see that well at all. But this paw particularly, you can see that it has 3 lobes in the back that have retractable claws. And I'll show you what that looks like. This is, in terms of foot morphology, this is what we're looking for out in the field. And so this is life size, kind of your average cat track, round overall, retractable claws, not a lot of negative space between the heel pad and the toes, 3 lobes on the heel pad, and large toes. Comparatively, you can fit all these in here for the most part. And so they walk in a particular way too. So that track pattern is called a gait. They like direct register, which means that the front foot goes down and then the rear foot steps directly into that. And so they leave this nice dotted line on the landscape. They do walk other ways too, but they like that one a lot. So that's a really good way for us to know what we're following in the landscape. So that's what we're looking for, is those clues. And it also tells us about how they hunt, because you have, say, like your wolves, and they take the landscape often at a jog, and they move around kind of quickly, and they can run prey down and exhaust it. But mountain lions cannot maintain high speeds for long distances. So they're a stalk and ambush predator. So they can be very powerful and very fast. They just don't have the cardiovascular capacity to maintain that over long distances. So they're built more like a sprinter and a wrestler. And so how they move around tells us a little bit about how they hunt. We also use GPS units while we're out there. So we track ourselves. We get out of the vehicle and track ourselves, and then as we find things on the land, we're typing in waypoints for kill sites, scat, hair, if we're on a track, when we end a track, and then we can take all of that back and analyze that once we get out of the field.
Wonderful. Let's go ahead. I'd like to open this up to some questions. I'd also like to hear some of the observations that you made. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to go through and why don't each class say 3 observations and a question that you have, and we'll move through that way. We're going to start with our Hamilton group today. I believe that is Mrs. Kerr's class. Oh, Mrs. Kerr's class. Would you share a few observations and a question? Mrs. Kerr's from.
Good morning. We have our question ready first. Go ahead, Jamie.
How many mountain lions are you guys tracking?
We have identified 28 individuals, but that's over the course of several years. So they certainly do not all live on the ranch, and they definitely are not all still alive. But that's the number that we've identified. On the ranch, we have 3 primary females that are of breeding age that have overlapping territories, and then 1 large male that overlaps all of their territories. And our population fluctuates with the amount of kittens that we have. So right now we have a lot of kittens out there. From 2 years ago or 3, we have a group of dispersed kittens. There was a group of 3 and a group of 2. One of them was a male, the rest were female. We don't know how many of them stayed on the ranch yet. And then last winter, we know 1 female had 2 kittens, and we know 1 female had 6, which is kind of unbelievable. Average litter size is 1 to 4. Average survival rate is 1 to 2. So the fact that this female has raised 6 kittens now successfully for a year, they're about a year old now, is really a testament to how good a hunter she is and the resources available on the ranch. So our population's been pretty stable with number of females and then a dominant male, but it does fluctuate a lot with the kittens.
Wonderful. Hamilton, do you have any observations you'd like to add?
We do. I'll call on Morgan.
There's lots of mountains, there's pine trees and sagebrush, and there's some little ponds.
A pond, pine trees, and a lot of mountains.
Yeah, so we have really good topography. We have, it's definitely quite varied, and there are a lot of good water resources, which is a good thing for you to notice because that helps wildlife quite a lot.
Wonderful. Let's move to Mrs. Connor's class.
Hey, observations first? What's an observation? Okay.
The mountain lions have a lot of land, and it's all very diverse with forests, mountains,
Okay. Observation? Yep.
So a lot of diverse land, is that what I got?
yeah, very diverse.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. We, for what you can see on the front side of the ranch with these cameras, if you look on like the Zumwald Ridge camera or the North Miller camera, you'll get to see some of the deeper forest that we have, the thicker forest. But yeah, there's a lot of variety and habitat here, which makes it a really great place for wildlife, both predator and prey species. So that variety, yeah, it helps us out a lot, and it's great for wildlife, and it really attracts them to this place.
Do they have a question?
You have a question at all?
Okay, go ahead.
Where do the cats prefer to hunt?
Where do they?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you think about how your prey species are going to be using the land, they're going to go to water, and then they'll feed on their way to a bed site, something like that. And your cats are gonna have the most success hunting either in forested areas or in edge habitat where they're meeting those open areas. Because if they don't have the ability to conceal themselves, they're not going to be very successful at hunting. So we don't see cats a lot in open grasslands. We actually don't see them a lot in the riparian areas too, but I think that has more to do with some connectivity in our drainages. We've been replanting them, so that might change in time. But for right now, we don't see them down low a whole lot. So they tend to be up in the thicker sagebrush, bitterbrush area, and where that edges into the forest, and then we see them in the forest a lot.
Wonderful. Let's go ahead and move on to Mr. Dietz's class.
What she's trying to say is they can't maintain high speeds for long periods of time.
That is accurate. But they can run crazy fast for a little while, like 40 miles an hour.
Okay, do you have another observation, Kaya? She said they come out at night more often.
Yeah, so that's actually a really interesting thing to bring up. And they are most active at dawn and dusk, and active quite a lot during the night, but it differs considerably between hunted and non-hunted populations. So if they're a non-hunted population and they're not seeing human pressure, they still come out a little bit more at dawn and dusk, but they are more consistently active around the clock. And if they are a heavily hunted population, then their activity is mostly crushed into those dawn and dusk times, and then you'll see them out at night, but you don't see them out during the day really at all. And so that's going to be a big variable in their activity levels.
Okay, Donovan, you got a question?
I was wondering, have you ever seen a mountain lion chase an elk?
I have not personally seen it, but we have caught it on camera.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Beckwith's class. That was Mr. Dietz. No, I think that was Mr. Beckwith.
That was Beckwith.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Dietz.
Okay, go ahead.
Since mountain lions are called pumas and cougars, does the scientific name change?
No, they just have a ton of names for them. The species name is the same. I think the Florida panther ends up sometimes listed in as a subspecies, sometimes not, depending on what you're reading. But yeah, the name doesn't change for them other than like just the more common names that we call them. So yeah, mountain lion, puma, cougar, catamount, if you're in like the Northeast. They have been historically called painters, which not sure about that one. But they get mountain screamer, they get all sorts of crazy names. But yeah, it's all the same species.
Okay, and then our observation, Justin.
I noticed a lot of mountains, grasslands, forests, rivers, and ponds.
Okay.
Yes, so a lot of diverse habitat, which is great for predator and prey alike.
Absolutely. Let's move over to Mrs. Coster's class. Hello. There's a lot of friends in Mrs. Coster's class. Do you have some observations and questions for us?
Let's see. We do. We have 2 questions and a couple observations.
Wonderful.
When did you know you wanted to be a scientist?
I kind of fell into it, honestly. I've been always super interested in the natural world, so I think my interests leaned more towards the naturalist side of things. And I became a lot more interested in actual scientific study from working at MPG Ranch. For me, when I was younger, science didn't really feel like something that was very accessible to me, and I had other interests, but I was always interested in the naturalist end of things. But since working at MPG, I've become really fascinated by scientific study and the scientific process. And so it's changed things for me quite a bit working here.
Thank you. We have another question.
How much do mountain lions eat a day?
Ooh, that varies a lot. They can eat 20 pounds in a sitting, which is crazy. That's so much, which is often probably why we see them taking naps after they eat a lot. So in a day, I mean, that's probably going to max them out for a day. I don't know how long it takes them to digest that, but 20 pounds to go seems like quite a lot. But I would imagine it varies between mountain lion to mountain lion and depending on what they happen to get their hands on, because some prey is really small.
That's going to be important for both middle school and high school to know, is how much prey is there here and how much do they eat a day, because that has to do with carrying capacity, correct?
Yes, so we have a rather substantial deer and elk population, as well as all sorts of other things. Mountain lions can have a very diverse diet, but they do tend to eat more deer than probably anything else. We have seen a number of our larger females taking down young elk, spike elk particularly. So as they get bigger, they can eat bigger things and they get more return for their efforts. So that works out pretty well for them. And we have probably over 600 elk that winter on this property and maybe 400 or so deer that winter on this property. So there's a substantial prey base here if you count in everything else too.
And we have one observation.
Yes.
Do mountain lions eat other mountain lions?
Or question.
Cool. Sounds like a question. But yes, they do. The main threat to mountain lions is other mountain lions and people. So I don't know that it happens very often, but it is definitely something that does happen.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Mr. Adair's class. I saw you guys kind of came in a few minutes late, but do you have any questions for Joshua? And then we have a couple after you ask some questions. We have some questions on the live stream.
All right.
So go ahead, Mr. Adair's class.
How much does a mountain lion weigh?
Oh, wait till it's. Try it now.
Oh, I got it. I heard you. It varies male to female, and it varies by the individual. So I think males tend to be about 1.5 times larger than females and will average in, say, about 150 pounds. And females are going to say then they'll average in like roughly 100 pounds, give or take. But there's going to be some variation there based on age. So your females could get bigger than that, certainly. And males in non-hunted populations, they can definitely get bigger as well. So, you know, a male mountain lion can get up to 200 pounds. And the largest one, I did a little Google search, and the largest one that ever came through a game check station was in the Southwest. And they had that thing, they weighed it in at 276 pounds, which is crazy. That's gigantic. So your average male is going to be about 150 pounds.
Yeah.
They're mostly tail.
Let's pull this guy up.
Hey, let's take a look, right?
We happen to have one.
We happen to have a mountain lion. This is not a large mountain lion, but look at how much of that mountain lion is tail. So, you know, if this individual, which is a smaller
Maybe walk that
cat,
way just a little bit.
is
Whoa.
probably 4 to 5 feet and then another 3 feet of tail.
Let's see what happens if we hold on, keep holding him up. I want to fold his tail over just to see.
Oh. Yeah, tail's probably about 2/3 the total length of the individual.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
Wow. Why do you think they have such a long tail? Yeah, I know. I'm curious. Do you guys have a quick thought? Like, why would they have such a long tail? Anybody else? If you have a guess, you can maybe type.
It's to help balance whenever they're running.
Yes, that is correct. So yes, it helps them with balance. And we see that a lot, particularly when they're in deep snow. The tail is like going side to side to side to help them kind of navigate deep snow. But they're built like sprinters. They can run, 40 miles an hour at a go. They can't do it very long, but they need to be able to corner quickly and be incredibly agile, so they use that tail to help balance.
Absolutely.
Do we have any more questions from that class before, or an observation?
Have you ever a mountain lion ever tried to attack you? Or someone
No.
on the job?
No, thankfully, we've never had any negative interactions with cats. I am very grateful that mountain lions typically do not care about people because they're incredible hunters, and it would be a very different scenario in the woods if they did care about people. But they don't view us as prey typically. When you do read about people having negative interactions with mountain lions, it's often that individual is either very young or very old, and typically not a good hunter for either being too old or being too young, and they're usually starving. So they get those, if something like that does happen, it gets really sensationalized and it makes a big splash in the news, but it's really, really rare. And so it's incredibly rare that we even see a mountain lion at all while we're out there studying them. But yeah, thankfully, none of us have had a negative interaction, and some of us on the study have come very close to mountain lions. So may it always be that way.
We have two teachers from Simpson School, Mrs. Frederickson and Mrs. Niles, that are on the live stream, and they have some really great questions. The first is, have you ever seen a bobcat, or do we have bobcats on the ranch?
Yes, we have bobcats, and I have seen them, and I think they're super cool, and they vary in size quite a bit too, so the toms get pretty big, and sometimes we're following, we'll be tracking mountain lions and we'll see bobcat tracks that are the size of a small juvenile cat or a mountain lion, which is pretty remarkable for a bobcat. But yeah, we definitely have bobcats. I don't think we have them in as great an abundance as we do the mountain lions.
Yeah. What do you do with the info that you collect from their DNA?
Yeah, fantastic question there. What we want to know is how the mountain lions are using the landscape. So that's going to be our GPS work. And then, so that gives, we see all their travel corridors that way. And then with the DNA, what we can figure out is how many individuals do we have on the property that actually have a territory on the property. That's going to help us with carrying capacity, right? So we know how many individuals are resident. And then we know how many individuals are transient. So like I said, we've identified 28 individuals. They do not all live here. That would be a crazy mountain lion party. That's way too many cats. Most of them are moving through. They're young males looking for territory, and we catch them in that winter snapshot. So with the DNA, we're able to figure out how many residents we have and how everyone is related, which is also very interesting for us to know what our family trees look like.
And just a reminder to those working on the challenge, look at the maps, the Google Earth maps of their tracks. You can see where they go and really do some interpretation of that data. And also you'll see those family trees. So you can learn about pedigree.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is from Mrs. Neal's class, and they're in Washington. So where do mothers usually stay with their cubs?
We find that they use kind of creative den sites when they have really young offspring, or if the weather's really bad, they'll also shelter in some of these places. So what we find is like a root ball where a tree has fallen over and there's a lot of negative space in there for them to get in. They'll use that. We have another site where there's a slight indentation in a rock wall, and a big piece of mistletoe, which is like this kind of weird growth cluster on a tree, is pushed up against that to create, again, kind of a protected space. Or you might be surprised to know that they use culverts. So like the water channels that run under roads, they will use those for den sites, or they'll use those if the weather's really bad to shelter. And so those are the places that we tend to see them using. I mean, I would assume if they could find a small cave or something available in like a rock cliff, they would use that too. They don't tend to really excavate anything to make a den like a bear would or like a wolf would. So they just use what they can find.
Wonderful. And don't there are a lot of birds on the ranch? And if so, do mountain lions eat birds?
We have a lot of birds on the ranch, and yeah, a mountain lion would eat a bird if it can catch a bird. They have their preferred prey, which is typically deer most of the time, but they will eat anything. So if you look at, like, I've got some papers I read with just a list of what they've come up with for diet analysis, and it is an extensive list. And sometimes they specialize in something, like they'll specialize in mountain goats, or they'll specialize in beaver, or something weird that like throws off the whole study.
So in a while, it has been said that mountain lions circle around their territory in a month. Is it true?
I would say that varies quite a bit because your territory size is going to be different for a male or a female. It's going to be different for a female with offspring, and it's going to depend heavily on the resources available in that territory. So if there is a lot less to eat, then it's going to be a much bigger territory. And if there is more food, then it's probably going to be a smaller territory. And so what I have seen is, at least for the cats around here, they'll make loops if they're on patrol, and I see them come by every couple of weeks. So maybe it's a slightly smaller territory for some of the cats out here.
All right, so we only have a few minutes left today. These are really phenomenal questions. So I want to remind all of you that you can email Joshua or us any questions, and we'll pass them on to him if they don't get answered today. But I want to go back to the challenge for a minute and think about what you're being asked to do. So high schoolers, you're thinking about managing the land at MPG Ranch. Middle schoolers, you're thinking about building a communication project around the impact of mountain lions on the ranch. And elementary students, you are writing a mystery story about the mountain lions on the ranch. And so each of those are very different questions, but also require some of the same background knowledge. So I want you to take a moment. I'm going to give you about 1 minute to turn to your neighbor and talk. And I want you to come up with a question based on those ideas that you would like Joshua to answer. So go ahead and turn and talk, and then we'll go through one more question.
And I'm going to come up with a bunch of questions to throw out to you as well. Things that you can think about.
While you're talking, I'm going to show you the Bitterroot Mountains.
There you go. They are looking quite stunning out there.
All right, with that, let's go back, and we're going to go through. Let's start with Hamilton.
Kathleen, actually, we were closing up class. I'm sorry, the bell's going to ring in a
Oh,
second.
that is okay. We are not going to start with Hamilton. Let's go to Mrs. Connor's class. I believe you guys are up. Are you up in Glacier? Glacier.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
There we go.
oh,
You're good. You're on. Yep, you're good.
okay, go ahead, Davis.
How do the mountain lions affect the environment of the ranch?
I didn't quite hear it. Could you, Ms. Connor, could you repeat it?
Yes. How do the mountain lions affect the environment at the ranch?
Oh my goodness, they have actually quite an impact. They do a lot to engineer environments. They'll impact deer populations potentially, so that's something to think about in terms of management, because if you have more younger mountain lions, then they're going to have a greater impact on deer, and if you have more older mountain lions, they might move into other species like elk or potentially moose. But they are really quick to give up kills. So when we go and we put cameras out, they always move off the kill. We put our cameras out, collect up DNA, and leave, and they come right back. But if we were, say, like a pack of wolves or a bear or something like that, they would leave the kill and abandon it. And at that point, they're feeding bears, they're feeding wolves, they're feeding coyotes, they're feeding fox, weasels, all kinds of beetles and other species. So yeah, and eagles, my gosh, we see so many eagles on mountain lion kills. So they're providing this incredible service to all of the other critters on the landscape that want to get a meal. So they have a rather large impact on what's going on out there.
Excellent question. All right, Mr. Dietz's class.
Question yet? Emma?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, this is my question. How many species have you seen since the start of this thing?
That's a big question.
How
many species?
An estimation.
How many species are studied on the ranch?
Geez, that's another big question. I'd like many. Yeah, like if you want to talk about like everything from the mycorrhizal fungi all the way up through vascular plants, we're looking at like over 600 species there alone.
Not just predators and prey.
So yeah, so predators, prey. I mean, we've got small mammal studies going on that they're covering probably a dozen plus species. Predators, coyote, fox, bears, mountain lions. We've got eagle studies. So gosh, I mean, personally, I've seen tons and tons of these species. But yeah, it's hard to answer that. I'd have to like sit down for a while and make a list, but it's going to be a long list.
All right, Mr. Adair's class.
I was wondering, where's the most prevalent mountain lion? Where are mountain lions most prevalent in the USA? Did you say? Thank you.
Oh, in the U.S., most prevalent in the West. So in Intermountain West and west of the Mississippi.
Those folks are from Alaska.
Oh, you're from Alaska. Oh, yeah. And then they don't go very far north, but with climate change, they're starting to extend north. So you shouldn't have mountain lions in Alaska, but you may have them someday.
Okay, thank you. Would it hurt if a mountain lion licked you? Thank you.
Could you say that one louder?
Would it hurt if a mountain lion licked you?
No. If it licked you?
Yeah, like would it drop blood?
I've heard from so cats have rough tongues. I've heard from folks with from studies doing like lion research over in Africa that it is not entirely a pleasant thing to be licked by a lion. So yeah, I don't know. It might not be like something you really want to experience, but I am hopeful that it's something that I never experience, because if I do, then something's gone terribly wrong.
Too close.
Yeah, I'm much too close. We've messed up the whole non-invasive study thing at that point.
Absolutely. Mr. Beckwith, does your class have a question?
Great. Now, start now.
Are there a lot of people that study mountain lions on MPG?
A lot of people that study mountain lions.
Hear that?
Yeah, just on MPG. So I'm the lead on the study, and then we hire around 8 people every winter to work with me. We go out in teams of 2 for safety, so we end up being a pretty good sized crew. But there's a lot of, there's researchers all over the West that are studying mountain lions.
Thanks.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go for it.
You got more?
Have kids been on a field trip to the MPG ranch?
Yeah, we bring students out here pretty regularly.
They're from Victor.
Oh, you're from Victor. Yeah, you guys could totally come up and check us out. We do winter tracking and track identification and stuff like that. You're just down the road, so that'd be pretty easy.
Oh, they're excited about that.
Thanks.
Yeah, we offer, and you should know, for the local schools, we offer transportation grants to try to make that even easier for you.
Awesome. Okay, I have a couple questions on the stream.
All right.
On average, how long does it take for cats to learn to hunt?
Oh goodness, it's tough to say. They're weaned by like 4 months and completely dependent on their mothers to hunt for them at that point. And if they're orphaned prior to a year, they don't typically have all the skills they need to hunt, so their survival's a little bit in question. So they're spending that window of time really honing their skills. Average dispersal age is about 15 months. So you'd say between the time they're weaned at maybe 4 months to the time they disperse at say 15-ish, then that's where they're learning those skills.
And here's another one, our last question of the day. Do you ever do water quality tests on the water at the ranch?
Yes, we do, with all sorts of different organizations in the university and Watershed Education Network and different groups. Yes.
Yeah. So I feel like there could be a lot more questions. So remember,
Yes.
if you want to ask Joshua more, go ahead and send us an email and we will have Joshua answer. And we're going to do another live day, and it's going to be a little different than today. Kathleen, Joshua, will you tell us a little bit about that?
Our next live day will be January 8th, and that's when the trackers are working, correct?
Yeah, so that's during our study season. So we're going to go over kill site analysis that day and how we process kill sites. You'll have an opportunity to speak with different trackers on the crew. We'll be in the field, so we'll have seen all sorts of cool stuff by then. And we will have our results back from the lab from last season. So we've got a few mysteries out there, particularly the mother who has 6 offspring, which is pretty amazing. Usually cats have 1 to 4, usually 1 to 2 survive. So the fact that she has 6 and they've made it to a year is unbelievable, but we don't know who that individual is yet, but we will know that when we talk to you next.
So tune in
Yeah.
January 8th
Yes.
to learn the mystery. All right.
Awesome. Okay, you
Thank
guys.
you guys.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Take care.